Cop tries to frame black woman with planted evidence. Then she shows her DEA badge. The sun was barely up when the lights flashed behind her. Kendra Wallace had just merged off Interstate 85 onto a quiet back road near the outskirts of Montgomery, Alabama. The morning mist still hung low across the ditches, thick enough to blur the trees, but not the blue and red reflection now pulsing in her rearview mirror. She tapped the steering wheel gently, eyes narrowing. Her speed had been steady, her lane changes legal. Still, she pulled over without hesitation. She kept both hands on the wheel as the patrol car slid in behind her. Her pulse stayed calm, on the outside. Inside, her muscles were coiled, not from fear, but from experience. This wasn't her first roadside encounter. A white officer approached the driver's side, his partner, taller, stockier, and with a buzz cut that screamed authority, hung back near her rear bumper. "License and registration," the first officer said. No greeting, no explanation. Kendra's eyes met his in the mirror. "Is there a reason I'm being stopped, officer?" He didn't answer, just repeated the demand. She moved slowly, narrating her every action, one hand reaching into her glove box, the other retrieving her ID from her wallet. She handed over the documents with fingers that didn't tremble. The officer glanced at them, then frowned. "Kendra Wallace?" he asked, tone laced with something too casual to be harmless. "Yes," she replied evenly. "You heading somewhere this early?" "Back to DC. Government business? Personal." He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle, Ms. Wallace?" The second officer shifted at the rear. Her body tensed. Her instincts screamed louder than his request. "Unless I'm being detained," she said clearly, "I'd prefer to remain in my vehicle." Now the first officer leaned closer, resting one forearm against the edge of her open window. "You've got a busted taillight," he said. "Standard procedure. I just had this car inspected 2 days ago," she said. "Nothing was flagged." "Step out, ma'am." It wasn't a request anymore. Kendra exhaled slowly and unbuckled. When she opened the door, the taller officer moved in. She took 2 steps back, keeping her hands visible. They surrounded her like sharks in a tight circle. She didn't flinch. "Pop the trunk," the buzzcut officer said. "No," she replied, flat and firm. "You have no probable cause to search my vehicle. Are you refusing a lawful order?" "I'm refusing an unlawful one." He smirked and motioned to his partner. "We've got a tough one." The next few moments blurred in slow motion. One officer distracted her with more questioning, while the other slipped to the trunk. A click, the lid rose, and the taller man leaned inside. Seconds later, he emerged, holding a clear bag filled with white powder. "Well," he said, feigning surprise, "what do we have here?" Kendra stared at it. Then at him. "That bag was not in my vehicle." "Then how do you explain it?" "I don't need to explain something you planted." The first officer chuckled darkly. "Is that your story, Ms.
Wallace?" She stepped forward, her voice cutting like a blade. "I need both your badge numbers, now." "Or what?" the taller one sneered.
Kendra didn't reach for her pocket. She didn't move an inch, but the heat in her eyes changed the air between them. "I strongly advise you to check my ID again," she said quietly. The younger officer scoffed. "Ma'am, the only ID we need is the one with your name and picture." She nodded, calm as ever. "In that case," she said, "you might want to take a closer look at what's in my back pocket, inside the leather badge wallet." For a second, neither moved. Then the first officer reached, pulled out the wallet, flipped it open. The gold badge glinted in the sunlight. DEA, Special Agent in Charge. Both men froze. She let the moment hang before she spoke again.
I suggest you call your supervisor immediately. The buzz-cut officer blinked, his throat working as if trying to swallow down the panic climbing up from his gut. The younger one took a half step back, his mind sprinting, trying to outrun what they had just walked into. Kendra didn't blink. "This entire interaction is being recorded," she said, voice steady.
Federal protocol, GPS time-stamped, video. Audio. If I'm not speaking to your precinct commander in the next 90 seconds, you'll both be processed under obstruction and abuse of power. The first officer stammered. We didn't know. I'm sure you didn't. She cut him off. Because people like you never expect the woman behind the wheel to be the one writing the report. He looked like he wanted to melt into the asphalt. I'm going to ask one last time, she said, her tone suddenly dropping an octave, steel behind every syllable. Who ordered this traffic stop? The taller officer looked to his partner, then back at her. What do you mean, ordered? She didn't smile, but her lips curved ever so slightly. I know you didn't just decide to pull over a black woman in a clean vehicle with no violations for fun. Someone gave the signal. So unless you want obstruction charges to turn into a federal conspiracy investigation, you'll tell me where the call came from. The second officer's shoulders slumped, his facade cracking. It came from dispatch, he said quietly. We got a tip. Said the vehicle was moving product up from Georgia. That was it. Anonymous tip? She asked. He hesitated, then nodded. I think so. Let me guess, she said. No report filed, no ID on the caller. Just a convenient call right before a bag of cocaine appeared in the trunk of a car that's been parked at a family home all weekend. She stepped closer. Not threatening. Commanding. You've just made the mistake of your career, because now I'm involved, and I don't just stop at the street level. The buzz-cut officer looked like he might throw up. Kendra reached into her jacket slowly, pulled out her phone and tapped once. This is Agent Wallace. Traffic stop has escalated to a field breach. Suspects are active duty law enforcement. Evidence planted. I need immediate internal affairs contact with Montgomery PD. I'm holding them roadside. The voice on the other end responded crisply. Copy that. Full log rolling. Hold position. She ended the call and looked back at the officers. Now, she said quietly, you're going to put your hands where I can see them. You're going to wait here until IA arrives. And you're going to hope to God this is the worst mistake you ever make in uniform. Neither man spoke. Neither had to. Because the fire she carried wasn't in her voice. It was in the silence that followed. The kind of silence that only came before everything changed. A long 12 minutes passed before the first marked vehicle from Montgomery Internal Affairs arrived. The silence on that roadside was suffocating. The two officers stood stiff, their backs against their cruiser, hands visible, expressions sliding between panic and poorly masked guilt. Kendra didn't say a word to them during that wait. She stood beside her vehicle, her badge visible, arms crossed, a figure carved from stillness and authority. The IA supervisor who stepped out of the unmarked sedan was a woman in her late 40s, salt and pepper hair pulled into a bun, her expression all business. Captain Renee Lawson had seen a lot in her years, but nothing prepared her for the call she'd just received. She walked directly up to Kendra, her voice low and respectful. Agent Wallace? Kendra nodded. Glad you came quickly? Lawson turned toward the two officers. You two, against the car. Now, weapons down, palms on the hood. But Captain, the taller officer started. We were just... Now, she barked. They complied, clumsily laying their sidearms down, glancing at each other like the bottom had dropped out from under them, which it had. Kendra handed over the clear plastic bag. This was found in my trunk. I want it bagged, logged, and tested. I suspect it'll test as seized cartel-grade cocaine, not street cut.
Check your federal inventory system for matches. Lawson took it with a gloved hand, inspecting it. Understood. And I want dash cam and body cam footage from these two, Kendra added. Both shifts, not just today. I want their stop logs for the past month. How many stops like this? How many disappearances? How many minorities pulled over with no real reason? Lawson's jaw tightened. We'll run every file. Good, Kendra said, because this wasn't random. Somebody wanted me stopped, and whoever made that call, they knew exactly who I was and exactly what I've been working on. You think this was coordinated? I know it was, Kendra said flatly. You don't pull over a federal agent with a planted bag of coke by coincidence. They were testing me, or sending a message. The taller officer finally snapped. We didn't know who you were, okay? We thought it was just a drug run. The call was from up the line. Up the line? Lawson asked sharply. I don't know a name, he said quickly. Just a voice on the intercom. It wasn't dispatch. Said to watch for a silver Lexus with Georgia plates. That's all. Lawson turned to Kendra. Can you send me a full copy of your dash footage? Kendra handed her a small encrypted drive. Full audio, video, and GPS log. I run it during any non-personal transport. I'll forward the secure link to your server tonight. Lawson nodded. We'll treat this as an immediate internal breach. Kendra's gaze was sharp. No delays, Captain. I want their union reps informed, but this doesn't get buried in policy reviews. This goes straight to state oversight. And I want the chief briefed in person. If he needs help understanding the implications, I'll be happy to explain what it means when two of his officers try to frame a DEA director for felony possession. The word director hit the air like a gunshot. The shorter officer paled instantly. Lawson raised an eyebrow. You're the director? Kendra didn't blink. I am. Behind her, one of the bystanders, an older black man who had quietly pulled off the road and watched the scene unfold, whispered something to his son. The young boy's eyes widened as he looked at Kendra, then at the cops, then back again. The boy whispered, She's the boss of the people who chase the drug dealers. Higher than that, his father whispered back. She runs the people who run those people. The father raised his phone, still recording. Kendra made no move to stop him. Let them see, she thought. Let the world see what justice looks like when it doesn't flinch. Lawson stepped forward, her tone almost formal now. Agent Wallace, on behalf of the Montgomery Police Department, I apologize for this stop. This will be investigated thoroughly, and I will personally file the misconduct report. You'll need to do more than that, Kendra said. This wasn't about a dirty cop. This was a system test. Someone out there wanted to see if I could be neutralized on a back road. Lawson nodded gravely. I'll get to the bottom of it. You'd better, Kendra replied, already walking toward her car. Because if I get there first, your whole house might burn with it. As Kendra slid back into her vehicle, she noticed her coffee had gone cold in the cup holder. She didn't take a sip. Instead, she reached for her satellite phone, keyed in a secure code, and waited. A moment later, a voice answered. Command? This is Wallace. I've been compromised in Montgomery. Attempted frame job, 2 local officers. Federal-grade cocaine, planted, suspects in custody. I need a cross-check of seizure logs over the last 60 days. Anything that went missing, anything unaccounted for. Yes, Director. Any leads on who ordered it? Not yet, she said, backing out onto the road. But they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I'm not just going to expose them. She hit the gas. I'm going to find whoever gave that order. And I'm going to end whatever machine they think they're running. The call ended. And in the quiet that followed, her eyes scanned the empty road ahead. Whatever war had just started, she was ready.
By the time Kendra pulled into the underground parking deck of the Birmingham Federal Field Office, the rain had started again. Light, steady, the kind of southern drizzle that clung to windshields and turned everything into a muted blur. She killed the engine and sat for a moment in silence, listening to the tick of the cooling motor and the distant hiss of rainwater dripping off concrete beams above. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark screen of the dash, calm, collected, and utterly focused. But inside, her mind was running through every possibility. Two local patrolmen in a quiet Alabama town don't magically get access to sealed federal evidence, and they don't choose her car at random unless someone gave them the green light. She reached for her encrypted field tablet, swiped through the biometric lock, and pulled up the latest inventory audit from the DEA's Atlanta Logistics branch. 3 seizures from the last quarter had red tags next to them, missing entries, flagged for review. She tapped on one. Operation Drift Net. Gulfside seizure. 4 bricks of uncut cocaine intercepted in a sting operation, transferred to a secure warehouse for cataloging. Except now, one was missing. Of course it is, Kendra muttered. Her phone buzzed softly. A message from Internal Affairs. Interview footage being compiled. Montgomery PD now under full review. Will update. She didn't reply. Not yet. Inside the building, everything smelled of cold air and antiseptic. A clinical place, unyielding and impersonal. But the moment Kendra stepped into the operations bullpen, heads lifted, conversations paused. Some of the newer agents straightened in their chairs. No one dared ask where she'd been, but everyone had heard. Derek Maddox, her second-in-command, stood near the central board, a fresh file in one hand and a tightly wound expression on his face. "You okay?" he asked quietly as she approached. "They tried to plant cartel-grade coke in my trunk," she said, voice even. "Not some dime bag." High purity, DEA sealed batch, from a federal storage facility. "And they would have walked me in front of a judge before noon if I hadn't opened my mouth." Maddox blinked. "That's not random." "No, it's not," Kendra replied. "Which means somebody thinks I'm a problem. And if they're testing me like that, it's because I'm too close to something, or I already touched it and didn't realize." He handed her the file. "You need to see this." Surveillance footage from one of the officers' homes. Lawson pulled it from the city's traffic cam servers. Kendra flipped it open. It showed the 2 patrolmen from earlier, Officer James Dorsey and Officer Mike Harlan, exiting a black SUV just days before the incident. They weren't in uniform, and they weren't alone. "That guy in the ball cap?" Derek said. "Run facial recognition. He's DEA." Kendra's eyes snapped up. "What?" "Or was," Derek clarified. "Name's Adam Cray. Used to be field logistics supervisor out of El Paso. Retired early, disappeared off the radar 5 years ago after a suspicious seizure miscount." "I remember the name," Kendra muttered. "He's one of the ghosts. The SUV he's driving, registered to a shell corporation in New Mexico. That company is linked to 3 other former field agents. Every one of them left under a cloud. Quiet settlements. No headlines." "So it's a network," Kendra said. "Not just local cops looking to hustle evidence." Derek nodded. "You're being hunted by your own shadow. Former agents who know the system. Who know how to manipulate audits, reroute inventory, and clean up loose ends. And someone gave them a directive to test me," she finished. She paced to the wall and stared at the map of the southern region. Red pins marking seized shipments, blue pins for warehouse sites, green for past complaints of evidence tampering. Her eyes locked on the triangle of markers in Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. "The product they tried to plant on me," she said. "What if it wasn't just to take me out? What else would it be?" "A message," Kendra replied. "They knew I'd catch it."
They wanted me to. Derek's brow furrowed. Why would they want that? To distract me, or force me to move faster than I planned. You know what people do when they're scared? They stop thinking. He stared at her. You think they're trying to make you overreact? No, she said, turning to face him fully. I think they're about to move something big, and they want me off balance when they do. She didn't wait for a response. She grabbed her phone and called the tech desk. This is Director Wallace, she said. I want satellite recon for the old storage yard in Tallapoosa County. Thermal imaging. Look for anything that moves after midnight. Cross-reference movement logs from our impound inventory. Anything unaccounted for gets red flagged. She hung up and faced Derek again. We're going back to the last place we thought we had control, because wherever that missing brick came from, I'll bet it's not the only one. He nodded. I'll prep the team. No suits, she said. No marked vehicles. We go quiet. As she walked toward her office, her phone buzzed again, a known number. She answered without hesitation. You're pushing in the wrong direction, a male voice said. Kendra stopped cold. Who is this? I'm not your enemy, Wallace, but you're stepping into waters that go deeper than you think. That a threat? It's a lifeline, the voice said. You want the real trail. Look west. El Paso. Warehouse 42. Storage logs from 2018. That's where the bleed started. And that's where it'll end. Then the line went dead. Kendra stared at the phone. West. Not a distraction then. A warning. She walked back into the room, eyes blazing. Cancel Tallapoosa, she said. We're flying to Texas. And just like that, the story behind a planted bag of coke in a roadside trunk had turned into a war against ghosts in uniforms who had once worn the same badge she still carried. Only now, she knew they were watching. And this time, she was walking straight into the fire. Kendra leaned back in her seat as the small charter jet lifted through the soft grey clouds above Birmingham. The hum of the engines dulled everything else, but her mind was far from still. She sat with arms crossed, one ankle resting over the other, eyes fixed on the screen embedded in the seat in front of her, satellite images of a logistics yard in West El Paso, Texas. Warehouse 42. From a distance, it looked like any other mid-sized industrial lot. Low-slung aluminum buildings, barbed wire fences, faded signage for a shell corporation long since dissolved. But tucked inside the thermal overlays were patterns that didn't lie. Movement where there should be none. Vans arriving at 3 o'clock a.m., unmarked pickups leaving less than 10 minutes later. All with 0 documented billings. Those aren't shifts, Kendra murmured. Derek Maddox glanced at her from across the aisle. Then what are they? Handoffs, she replied. And we're late. The pilot's voice crackled in over the intercom, announcing descent into El Paso. The city below looked sun-bleached and sprawling, a quiet grid of beige and dust stretching to the edge of the desert. But to Kendra, it looked like a memory she'd buried. Warehouse 42 had once been a federal intake site. She'd processed 2 major busts through it early in her career, back when she still believed the system was watertight. Now it was just a scar, and someone had started picking at it. They landed at a discreet municipal terminal, where 2 agents from the DEA's internal task force met them curbside. Agent Rosa Lynn was first to greet her. Blunt-cut hair, sharp jawline, posture straight, like she hadn't slept, but wouldn't admit it. We've been watching the site since your call, Rosa said as she handed Kendra a tablet. Thermal confirms it's active. No employees on record. The property is technically in forfeiture limbo, but someone's keeping the lights on. Kendra scanned the report. Who's listed as current leaseholder? Shell company called Torwell Industries. Set up by a law firm in Flagstaff. It was dissolved 8 months ago. So nobody owns it officially, Kendra said. But someone sure as hell is using it. They rolled toward the compound in 2 black SUVs, windows tinted, speed controlled. Rosa sat up front, murmuring into her comms mic. Derek sat next to Kendra in the back. "You really think this is where it started?" he asked. "No," Kendra said. "I think this is where it was supposed to stay buried." The compound came into view, desolate at first glance, just a fenced perimeter with cameras pointed outwards. But even from the road, Kendra's trained eyes caught signs of recent activity. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt, scuff marks near the gate latch. The padlock was industrial grade, but the metal showed signs of wear, used daily, not dormant. They parked a quarter-mile down the road and approached on foot through a dry wash. A heat shimmer rose off the asphalt. Cicadas screamed in the mesquite trees. Kendra crouched near the outer fence and surveyed the entry point. "Give me 5 minutes," Rosa said. She moved to the side, popped open her field kit, and began working on the lock. While she did, Kendra walked the fence line and found a small outcropping where someone had tried to bury old evidence bags. Torn, melted under the sun, the remnants of barcodes still legible. "They were lazy," she muttered. "Or they didn't think anyone would ever come back," Derek said. The lock clicked, the gate creaked open. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous and humid. Pallets stacked in shadows, some wrapped in plastic, others exposed. The air smelled of bleach and mold and something sharper, chemical. Kendra pulled a pen light from her belt and flicked it on. "Check for a control room," she said. "If this place still has internal surveillance, I want every drive." As Rosa and Derek split off, Kendra approached one of the pallets and peeled back the plastic. Beneath it were boxes labeled as building materials. Inside those, vacuum-sealed bricks. 6 of them. She cut one open, white powder spilled out. It was fresh, untouched. That was when she heard Rosa call out. Urgent, low-voiced. "Kendra, you need to see this." She jogged down the hall toward the side office. Inside, Rosa was standing beside a dusty server rack. Several of the drives were missing, but one still blinked. Connected to it was an ancient monitor, powered by a car battery jury-rigged beneath the desk. "Someone's been remote accessing this," Rosa said. "There's a repeating connection log to an IP range out of Langley." Kendra stared at her. "CIA? Maybe, or someone spoofing them." She moved to the desk, pulled open a drawer. Inside was a crumpled manila folder. She opened it slowly. It held a list of names. Dozens. Many of them were officers, others civilians. A few were redacted entirely. But one name stood out. Agent Adam Cray, the man who'd been seen with the Alabama officers. Beside his name was a simple note in pen. "Runner, West Route, trust expired." "Holy hell," Derek said, stepping into the room. "They're not just rerouting product, they're tracking loyalty." "Which means someone's purging the ones they can't control anymore," Kendra added. Just then, Rosa's comms crackled. "Unmarked vehicle approaching! 2 minutes out!" No plates, dark SUV. Kendra didn't hesitate. "We're burned." "Extract now. Back to the ridge." They swept the space clean as fast as they could. No time for deep analysis. Just enough to snag the bricks, the folder, and the drive. As they pulled out of the compound, the black SUV passed them going the opposite direction. Windows up. No driver visible. But in the rear seat, Kendra caught a glimpse. A man in a dark suit. Glasses. Staring straight ahead. Adam Cray. He hadn't vanished. And judging by the cold stillness in his expression, he'd just seen enough to know that Kendra was still chasing him. But now,
She had his name. And his next mistake would be his last. Kendra stood in the middle of the motel room in Santa Fe, its paint chipping and curtains half stuck in their rails, while the portable evidence scanner hummed beside her. She hadn't slept. Not really. Not since they got back from El Paso. The folder sat open on the desk in front of her, the one with the handwritten list of names and status notes. Trust expired. Cleared. Pending. She stared at it like it might blink. Rosa knocked once and walked in without waiting. We finished the trace on the warehouse server. That Langley IP wasn't spoofed. Kendra looked up. You're telling me the CIA was directly accessing a rogue DEA evidence site? Rosa nodded. And not just once. There's a repeating signature tied to an old interagency intel sharing agreement. It's supposed to be dormant, expired 3 years ago. Derek, leaning against the window frame, turned. So what's the play here? Are we saying our own government was in on it? Or someone inside was using old clearance as cover, Kendra said. Either way, they were watching. And they let it run. Rosa pulled out a second folder. We ran facial recognition on the guy you saw in the SUV. It was Adam Cray. Former Special Investigations liaison, supposedly transferred overseas in 2019. Supposedly, Kendra echoed. But he was sitting 20 feet from a pile of trafficked bricks and a server still linked to our own infrastructure. Derek frowned. So what's he doing here now? Kendra walked to the window. The desert light was beginning to shift. Late afternoon washed everything in a pale orange haze. We need to draw him out. He won't come to us unless we step into his lane. Rosa tilted her head. How? Kendra turned back to them. We leak part of the folder, just a name. Someone marked as cleared. Derek blinked. That could get someone killed. Or it could get Cray to move, she countered. If he sees us touching the network, he'll try to bury the rest. Rosa hesitated, then gave a nod. I'll scrub the data to keep the leak anonymous. 2 hours later, a private burner account sent an encrypted packet to a local journalist in Austin. Inside was a single name, Marcus Doolin, a precinct chief in Oklahoma City. Exactly 21 minutes after the leak, a security alarm tripped at Doolin's residence. By the time agents arrived, Doolin was gone. No signs of forced entry, no violence. Just a back door left open and a phone with the battery pulled. Rosa radioed in. They got him. And fast. This wasn't cleanup. This was prevention. Kendra stood in the command van, jaw tight. So now we know they're watching the list, which means... Derek picked up the thread. They have access to something beyond the warehouse, something wider. Kendra turned slowly. They're inside our systems. That night, she called Washington. Her superior at the DEA, Deputy Director Wallace Grant, answered on the second ring. His voice was sharp, dry, the way it always was at midnight. Brooks, he said. You have a hell of a wake-up call in my inbox. I need secure access to our legacy systems, she said. Back-end access, pre-2009 archives. You know how much red tape that triggers? Yes, she said, voice even. I also know you trained me to go around red tape when the mission demanded it. There was a long pause, then a sigh. Sending you a ghost key. 15-minute window. Use it right. She did, and what she found in the back-end access logs chilled her. Over a dozen sealed entries, marked under an internal tag labeled Echo 7. Many were tied to evidence transfers, others to suspect release forms that had never been entered into the system, all authorized by a clearance code no longer in circulation. Adam Cray's. And one other, her own. Kendra stepped back from the terminal. Breath caught in her throat. Someone was using her badge, framing her from within. The trap hadn't been just on the road that day in Alabama. It had been running for months. She looked at the frozen screen, then slowly reached for her phone and sent a single encrypted message to Rosa and Derek. Code Black, Level 1. Initiate fallback protocol. Within 10 minutes, their entire operation went dark, and Kendra Brooks went off the grid. Because the only way to dismantle a system this deep was from the inside out. The moment Reagan stepped into the Atlanta field office of the DEA, a wave of cold, focused energy settled around her. The building hummed with tension. Word had already circulated through internal channels, the arrest, the planted evidence, the badge reveal. But whispers weren't what brought her here. She came for proof. Agent Marcus Tay met her at the door, tie askew and 2 tablets in hand. "You stirred up a hornet's nest," he muttered. "We've got chatter from internal affairs, and Fielding's already briefing DOJ. "Good," Reagan said simply, taking one of the tablets. "Because I'm not letting this get buried." They entered the secured cyber intel room, where a small team of analysts was already huddled around a live map. Red pins marked incidents, arrests filed by Officer Colt and Officer Mays. The pattern was obvious. Nearly every stop was within 5 miles of county lines. Nearly every suspect was black or Latino, and more damningly, more than half had filed complaints that mysteriously vanished from system logs. Tay pointed to a cluster near the South Ridge corridor. "That's where it gets ugly. 4 stops, same time of day, same justification. Erratic driving. And here's the kicker. No dashcam footage." "Deleted?" Reagan asked. "More like it never existed. These patrol cars were listed as under maintenance every time." Her jaw tightened. "And what about the arrest logs?" "Fabricated or missing." "We found 2 files duplicated with altered timestamps. They made it look clean on paper, but underneath, it's a dumpster fire." Reagan scrolled through the data. Names of victims. Mismatched inventory reports, all pointing to a systemic abuse wrapped in routine. She looked up. "We need to isolate their access points. I want to know who else signed off on those arrests, who checked the evidence, and who signed the transport slips." Tay gave her a grim nod. "We're already digging." "But Reagan, it gets worse." He tapped a line of code pulled from the body of a corrupted arrest report. "It's a signature, encrypted. Embedded into the back end. We traced it through a backdoor auditing system that hasn't been used since 2009. She stared at the code. "What's it doing there?" "Best guess." Someone inside reactivated the old framework, maybe to reroute data, maybe to scrub it. But here's what should scare you. "That system's nickname, Zeno." The name landed like a brick. Tay lowered his voice. "You ever hear of Operation Zeno?" Reagan nodded slowly. "Buried program, supposed to have been shut down after a whistleblower leaked its use for off-the-record seizures. Evidence rerouted, suspects ghosted." "Exactly. Only now it's back. And it's being used to move evidence like product." The room fell quiet as Reagan processed the revelation. This wasn't just about 2 dirty cops. It was about a shadow network. One that had learned to hide not outside the law, but within it. She turned to the team. "Keep working. Every arrest, every report, every suspicious void, connect the dots." "I want names, terminals, patterns, and I want surveillance on Colt and Mays." "Already ahead of you," Tay said, flipping to a live feed. "We pinged their cruisers." "But get this, one of them's missing. Mays disappeared after your release. Colt went off duty claiming stress leave. Neither has checked in." Reagan felt her blood run cold. "They know they're exposed." Tay nodded. "And they're not waiting to get cuffed." She exhaled, bracing herself. "Then we find them before they vanish." And just like that, the mission shifted. It wasn't about cleaning up corruption anymore. It was a race against time, to catch the men who had played the system like a rigged game, and to tear down the network that gave them cover. The air inside the DEA field office conference room was thick with tension. Maps were pinned, files scattered across the table, and photos of Officer Kyle Dempsey and his known associates lined one side of the board. Alana sat at the head of the table, a quiet storm behind her eyes. Her hair was pulled back tight, her black blazer dusted with road salt from the sudden trip to Louisiana, and her fingers drummed steadily against a manila folder labeled Internal Affairs, Preliminary Findings. Salgado stood beside her, arms folded, waiting as the room filled with agents. Naomi Kersey entered last, closing the door behind her with a soft click. "We traced the cruiser that left the precinct," Salgado began, gesturing to a surveillance still on the monitor. "It was routed to a maintenance depot in Baton Rouge. Switched plates. The shop owner claims it was dropped off with federal credentials." Alana didn't look up. "Which credentials?" "That's the problem," Naomi said. "They were cloned from a real marshal, a guy who retired last year. Whoever did this knew what systems to tap." Alana opened the folder. Inside were the falsified intake logs, 2 statements from junior officers who had raised concerns and been reassigned, and 1 letter, unsigned, typed, and mailed to an anonymous DOJ Dropbox. It detailed how evidence was being moved through small-town precincts, laundered through impound facilities, and replaced with staged seizures. "And the powder they planted in my trunk?" she asked. Salgado pulled a Ziploc from the evidence tray and held it up. "We tested it. It's not pure cocaine. It's a mixture, cut with a binding agent that matches a batch logged during a 2022 bust in Phoenix. That inventory was marked as destroyed." Alana nodded slowly. "Then this isn't just about Dempsey." "He's part of something bigger." Naomi stepped forward. "We cross-checked every arrest Dempsey's made in the last 2 years. 49 is... 38 were black or Latino drivers. 22 were charged with drug possession. Body cam footage." Naomi shook her head. "Footage is either corrupted or missing." Alana stood. "We're dealing with a pattern, a network, and the longer we chase this as isolated incidents, the more people like me become data points in their operation." A knock came at the door. An agent poked his head in. "Director Brooks, we got something. Anonymous tip just came in through the DEA encrypted tip line. Says the name Zeno is tied to an evidence clearance code used in a ghost task force that was never formally disbanded. The tipster says it connects to Velt." The room went dead silent. Alana exhaled slowly. "Marcus Velt died in a fire 6 years ago. Apparently not quite. The system pinged his alias in a federal login 2 weeks ago. It wasn't flagged because the access key was labeled decommissioned under Project Holdback." Alana walked to the screen and stared at the access logs. "We let a ghost into the system, and now that ghost is moving product and pulling strings." "What do we do?" Naomi asked. Alana turned, her voice razor-sharp. "We go hunting, starting with Dempsey. I want him brought in now." No show of force, no press, quietly. "We catch him before he gets wind that we know." Salgado nodded. "We can intercept him at the precinct tonight. Shift change." Fewer eyes. Alana narrowed her eyes. "And once we have him?" She picked up a file, opened it to the unsigned letter, and placed it on the table. "We flip him. Dempsey thinks he's just another corrupt cop working a side hustle. He has no idea he's being used by people with access to black-budget programs and ghost systems. If he wants to avoid prison, he's going to talk." Naomi met her gaze. "And if he doesn't?" Alana didn't blink. "Then we make sure he becomes the first domino, one way or another." That night, under cover of a mild spring rain, the DEA moved in. 3 unmarked vehicles rolled to a stop half a block from the station. Dempsey exited the building alone, unaware. 2 agents approached from either side. "Kyle Dempsey," one of them said calmly, flashing a badge. "You're wanted for questioning in connection with a federal investigation. Please come with us." He laughed, dry and nervous. "You serious? I got work in the morning." "You can call them from holding." Dempsey hesitated, then nodded. "All right." "All right." He stepped into the car. The doors closed. He didn't speak for 2 blocks. "You gonna tell me what this is about?" he asked, forcing a chuckle. "I'm being punked, right? This some kind of prank?" Alana turned in her seat. "You planted drugs in my trunk. You filed false evidence. And you think this is a prank?" His face froze. "That's right," she said, showing her badge. "DEA Director Alana Brooks. You framed the wrong woman." "Now you have a choice. Help us or go down for conspiracy, tampering, obstruction, and federal fraud." Dempsey's mouth opened, then shut. Alana leaned closer. "Next words out of your mouth better be names." "Because you're not the first, and if you don't start talking, you won't be the last." His eyes flickered. "I want a deal." "Start with who gave you the powder," she said. "Then we'll talk." As the car rolled into the secure lot, the wheels of a deeper conspiracy had already begun to unravel. And Alana Brooks wasn't just holding a badge now. She was holding the match. The Atlanta field office was quiet at dawn. Alana stood before a wall-sized monitor in the tactical room, her arms folded, eyes scanning the timeline of data projected before her. Agent Dempsey, now fully looped into the operation and wearing a new badge of humility, sat nearby cross-referencing files, his tone subdued and focused. "We traced Maddox's last known burner to a signal jump through a dead cell tower in Monroe," Dempsey said. "Used to relay encrypted packages during Operation Holdback. Someone reactivated it." Alana nodded. Her gaze moved to a blinking red dot on the map, an old warehouse district on the outskirts of Monroe. Not a registered DEA facility, but a place she remembered from a file buried years ago. "Get eyes on it," she said. No approach, not yet. Naomi Kersey entered with a laptop in hand, her expression sharp. "You need to hear this," she said, and hit play on a surveillance video. The footage showed an interior camera feed, a dimly lit evidence room. A man in a worn baseball cap, head down, used a keycard to enter, disable the camera, then opened a sealed locker and extracted a crate marked as destroyed. "Timestamp says 48 hours ago." "That crate is from our Miami op. We burned the digital tag, but Zeno reclassified it as temporarily reassigned within 8 minutes. Alana looked to Dempsey. "You still think this is about dirty cops?" "No," he said quietly. "This is architecture." A silence fell. Alana turned back to the map. "Zeno isn't hiding anymore." "It's active, which means Velt is testing us. He wants us to see what he can still control." Naomi nodded slowly. "And every move we make triggers a counter." Dempsey leaned forward. "So we stop reacting. We bait him." Alana raised an eyebrow. "We let them think we're making a drop," he explained. "A fake package, logged into Zeno. But we trace every access point they use to move it. We force Velt to intervene." Alana considered the proposal. Risky. But it might be the only way to flush out the command structure. "Make the package something they'd kill for," she said finally. "Something worth risking exposure." Naomi nodded. "I'll pull a crate from deep storage. Venezuelan cut. Enough street value to stir ghosts." Dempsey stood. "I'll write the fake intel and feed it through a corrupted field channel. It'll look like a mistake." They had a plan. 3 days later, the trap was set. The fake shipment was logged in Zeno using legacy credentials, a combination of old clearance codes and Dempsey's now deactivated ID. The digital signature pointed to a defunct Atlanta facility scheduled for demolition. Alana watched the tracer from the operations van as the crate moved through ghost terminals. Within minutes, the signal had jumped to a warehouse in Monroe. "We have movement," Naomi said, staring at the feed. "All teams in position," Alana commanded. Inside the Monroe warehouse, shadows moved with purpose. Armed men, tactical gear, precise movements. Not street dealers. Trained professionals. Salgado's voice cracked through the comms. "We got visuals on Calloway." "He's moving the crate now. No sign of Velt yet." "Keep watching," Alana replied. "He won't let someone else close this." Moments later, a black SUV rolled into the loading dock. From the passenger side stepped a man with a familiar gait. Calculated, almost casual. Marcus Velt. "Target confirmed," Naomi whispered. "Wait for my word," Alana said. The warehouse camera feed went static. A clear sign. Velt knew the package was bait. He was watching them too. Then the radio snapped. "They're leaving," Salgado called. "Moving the crate to a secondary site." "Let them," Alana said. "We follow quietly." This isn't about recovery. This is about names. They tailed the convoy across county lines, through abandoned back roads until it stopped at an unmarked facility, built beneath an old logistics yard. Inside, servers hummed. Walls lined with drive arrays. Zeno's heart. "We hit it tonight," Alana said. "No press, no warning, full blackout." Dempsey met her eyes. "And when we crack it open?" She didn't blink. "We rip the roots out. One line of code at a time." The screen before them blinked once. A new login had just accessed the Zeno network. Username, Varis. Naomi's voice barely rose above a whisper. "That's him." Alana looked up, her voice like steel. "Then let's end him." The courtroom was packed, but you could have heard a pin drop. Rows of pew-like benches were filled with press, law students, and curious members of the public, all waiting for the final moments of a trial that had rocked the entire county and beyond. The State versus Officer David Crowley wasn't just another case. It was the reckoning of a system too long cloaked in silence. At the prosecution's table, Special Agent Alana Monroe sat poised. Her eyes focused on the judge, but her mind razor-sharp, cataloguing every twitch, every whisper. She wasn't a lawyer by trade, but her presence was intentional. Symbolic. The woman who had been arrested under false pretenses, accused of trafficking by the very system she helped regulate, was now the anchor of its unraveling. Across the aisle, Crowley sat stiff in a grey suit 2 sizes too big, sweat pooling at his collar. His defense attorney shuffled papers that no longer mattered. The case had already caved in days ago, once the body cam footage miraculously lost was recovered from a hidden server at the precinct. Once the testimony from a rookie officer, who finally broke under conscience, confirmed the drugs had been planted. Once the internal logs showed suspicious login access to the DEA archive system from Crowley's patrol car laptop at 2:47 a.m., the same night Alana's vehicle had been flagged. All the evidence had pointed in one direction. And now, Judge Reyes was about to speak the final words. "Mr. Crowley," the judge began, voice steady, "you were entrusted with upholding the law. Instead, you manipulated it, used it as a weapon against those you swore to protect. This court finds you guilty on all counts: evidence tampering, false arrest, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit criminal misconduct." A collective exhale surged through the room. Alana didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She only nodded once, tightly, then rose to her feet. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as reporters surged forward. Microphones pushed through the crowd like spears, chasing a single question. Agent Monroe, how does it feel to finally get justice? She paused at the top of the courthouse steps, took in the sea of faces, and spoke clearly, so no one could miss it. This wasn't about me. This was about accountability. About truth. A reporter pushed forward. So what now? Alana didn't hesitate. Now, we rebuild. Later that evening, in a quieter part of the city, Alana met with Naomi Harris and Isaiah Templeton at the new Community Oversight and Justice Task Force headquarters. The walls still smelled of fresh paint, the whiteboards clean and waiting. This was where policy would be drafted, where oversight would be enforced, where the system would finally be watched back. Naomi handed Alana a thick folder. Internal Affairs just confirmed 6 more officers with ties to Crowley. They're opening up new cases, Isaiah added. The DA wants you to consult directly on training protocols for non-disclosure screening. Your story has them rattled, in a good way. Alana looked down at the folder, then back up. Let's make sure we use this moment. Not for revenge, for reform. They nodded in unison. As the meeting wrapped, Alana stepped outside into the crisp air. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a saved voicemail. Her niece's voice, soft, excited, innocent, spilled into her ears. Auntie, I told my class you're a superhero. They think I'm joking, but I know I'm not. She closed her eyes for a second, steadying herself against the swell of emotion. Because this hadn't just been a battle in a courtroom. It had been a fight for what came next, and she wasn't finished, not even close. Turning to face the city, Alana Monroe whispered to no one in particular. They tried to write my story for me, but I held the pen the whole time. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about power and silence, make sure to subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and join us next time. Because tomorrow's story might just be yours.